Jonathan, we're hoping that the worst of the financial crisis is behind us and that companies will start employing people again. What do you think some of the challenges still remain, though, for businesses globally?
Yes. Just an interesting point in terms of what you said about South Africa is that we haven't felt the crisis in the middle class like they felt it in the US and the UK and Europe. It's been, interestingly, more at the worker level, where we've heard 500,000 people have been laid off. And I think the real problems nationally are at that level. And the middle class, if you like, and that's where the management level is drawn from, shouldn't think that the crisis isn't biting. It's just not biting them as much as it's biting others. So I think one of the challenges in HR in South Africa at the moment is to help organizations to be really caring when we have to let people go, and to give some sense of courage and reassurance going forward. I don't think we've seen the worst of it in terms of employment statistics yet in South Africa. We're a little bit behind the curve in that sense. But there have been organizations that have really responded very well to that. I think even of a mine, where you think that's, in a sense, one of the least caring contexts, where they said, well, we've got a year's worth of supply on the ground, above ground, we are going to be able to dig for a long time. And they used that period to go into retraining, upskilling their people so that they have a better workforce when the time comes. Not every organization can afford to do that, of course. But I think we do have a challenge to make people feel valued and to feel important.
Elsie, we know some of the challenges that Eskom as an organization faces going forward. As the HR functioning within Eskom, what are some of the challenges you see for yourself?
I think one of the biggest challenges we see, particularly now after the crisis, is the fact that as an organization, you can no longer afford to try and be everything to everybody. We need to start carving up a clear value proposition in terms of what you are about as an organization and what kind of people you want to attract, and start investing in that instead of like trying to be everything for everybody. But I think what's also important is to start building resilience at an organizational level and at an individual level, so that as crises come, as we move ahead, you have a better equipped a staff complement that can be dealing with any other crisis in case you have to retrench as well.
Well, Steve, we were talking about transactional workloads. How do you think HR departments can better balance their different workloads going forward from here?
A couple of things. I think the first is that you need to understand how all the various parts of the HR organization come together. So if you're dealing with recruitment, for example, as a process, you need to understand where it starts and where it ends, and really the various components that it goes through. And you need to segment that and put those into their right boxes. So again, going back to that point about transactional, deal with the transactional issues where they should be. But recruitment is a very strategic component of organizations. And so make sure the strategic components associated with understanding where, in fact, we find that those critical and core skills, we understand where those are. And so ultimately is understanding, getting those components to deal together, making sure your governance structures, where the decisions are made, put them in the right place, have the right people in the right room making those decisions, not just anybody who is involved into those positions. And then very definitely working to get that credibility and that support from an organizational leadership point of view. Is fundamental. And I think just to link into one point which links to a couple of these, and that is that we've got to understand as an individual, when they go to work at the start of the day, they are the most important person probably in their lives ultimately. And is that organization then creating that environment where that's recognized, where contribution is noted, and when they leave work at the end of the day, they felt that they've contributed from their point of view? Unless those foundational things are in place at the end of the day, the ability of the organization to be able to deal with people fairly and consistently on an ongoing basis is really limited. And it remains very much of a wish as opposed to a reality.
I'm afraid we have to leave there. We've run out of time, but thanks all very much for coming into the studio today. Well, that's the end of today's episode of Africa's Boardroom. Thanks again to all of my guests. That was Jill Smart from Accenture Global, Steve Smith from Accenture South Africa, Elsie Pule from Eskom, and Jonathan Cook from GIBS. From the team and me, it's goodbye.